History has few figures as controversial, as transformative, and as enduring as Mao Zedong. Born a peasant in the quiet hills of Hunan, Mao would grow into a revolutionary giant, a man who defied dynasties, warlords, and foreign empires to forge a new China. His story is one of ambition and endurance, of victories written in blood and mistakes that scarred generations. From an obscure student to the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, Mao's rise was neither swift nor easy. It was a journey through famine, war, betrayal, and the unrelenting struggle for power. Tonight, we trace that journey, the making of the man who declared in 1949, "The Chinese people have stood up." Mao Zedong was born on December 26, 1893, in Shaoshen, a small farming village in Hunan province. His father was a tough, practical farmer, wealthier than most peasants, but far from elite. For young Mao, life was shaped by contradictions, the grueling labor of the countryside, but also a hunger for books and ideas. In 1910, famine struck Hunan. Entire families starved. Mao saw firsthand how fragile peasant life was and how little the ruling order cared. This planted the seeds of rebellion in his heart. Defying his father, Mao pursued education, enrolling in a teacher's college in Changsha. There he discovered politics. The 1911 revolution, led by reformers and revolutionaries, toppled the Qing dynasty. Mao briefly served as a foot soldier, catching his first taste of revolution, though not yet its purpose. By 1918, Mao found himself in Beijing, working as a librarian at Peking University. It was humble work, sorting dusty books, but within those shelves lay the writings of Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and radical Chinese thinkers. Under the mentorship of Marxist intellectual Li Dazhao, Mao absorbed ideas that would define his future. The May 4th movement of 1919 shook him further. Thousands of students marched against foreign imperialism and corrupt traditionalism. Mao threw himself into activism, publishing fiery essays, leading protests in Changsha, and championing not only workers, but women's equality. The peasant's son was transforming into a revolutionary. In July 1921, Mao traveled to Shanghai as one of just 13 delegates at the founding Congress of the Chinese Communist Party. Representing Hunan, he was still young and untested, but his organizational skills soon proved invaluable. Back home, he rallied miners, railway workers, and farmers into unions and night schools. He built 20 organizations in just 2 years, spreading socialist ideals like wildfire through Hunan's hills and villages. By 1923, Mao rose into the CCP's leadership and, under Soviet guidance, joined the fragile alliance with the nationalist Kuomintang. Together, they sought to unify China. Mao even ran a KMT propaganda bureau. But unity was short-lived. When Chiang Kai-shek took command after Sun Yat-sen's death, the alliance collapsed into betrayal. In 1927, Chiang unleashed a bloody purge in Shanghai, executing thousands of communists. Mao himself narrowly survived. Determined but wounded, Mao turned to the countryside. In September 1927, he led the Autumn Harvest Uprising, hoping to ignite a peasant revolution. It failed disastrously. Yet from failure came clarity. The revolution's power lay not in the cities, but in the peasants. Alongside military commander Zhu Dai, Mao retreated to the Jinggang Mountains, where he began forging his theory of guerrilla warfare, a people's war born in the villages, surrounding and eventually strangling the cities. By 1930, Mao had carved out a revolutionary base in Jiangxi, complete with land reforms, schools, and his own Red Army. In 1931, the region declared itself the Chinese Soviet Republic, with Mao as its chairman. But internal strife soon followed. The infamous Futian incident saw Mao purge rival factions, thousands of lives lost to secure his authority. Personal loss struck too. In 1930, his wife, Yang Kai-hui, was executed by KMT forces, leaving Mao devastated.
Chiang Kai-shek, meanwhile, launched repeated encirclement campaigns. For years, the Red Army held strong, but in 1934, overwhelming pressure forced a retreat. Thus began the Long March, a desperate 6,000-mile odyssey across mountains, rivers, and hostile territory. Of the 100,000 who set out, only about 8,000 reached Shanxi a year later. Hunger, exhaustion, and relentless pursuit by the KMT decimated their ranks. Yet, it was in this crucible of survival that Mao's leadership crystallized.
At the Zunyi Conference in 1935, Mao seized the moment. Criticizing Soviet-trained leaders for disastrous strategies, he emerged as the undisputed head of the communist movement. From then on, the revolution bore his vision and his name. By the late 1930s, the communists had a new base in Yan'an. Here, Mao transformed his ragged army into a disciplined political and military force. His writings on practice, on protracted war, redefined Marxism for Chinese realities, a process he called the sinification of Marxism. The Japanese invasion of 1937 forced Mao and Chiang Kai-shek into an uneasy Second United Front. While the KMT bore the brunt of conventional battles, the communists thrived in guerrilla resistance, expanding their influence across the countryside. In Yan'an, Mao built more than armies. He forged loyalty through ideology, education, and propaganda. The 1942 Rectification Campaign purged critics and centralized power firmly in his hands. By 1943, Mao was not just a leader. He was the revolution's unchallenged voice.
When World War II ended, peace between the CCP and KMT proved impossible. Civil war erupted once more. Though outnumbered and outgunned, Mao's People's Liberation Army capitalized on corruption and declining morale in Chiam's forces. Through relentless campaigns, Liusheng, Huaihai, and Pingjin, the communists swept across northern and central China. By late 1949, the KMT was shattered. Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan with his government in exile.
On October 1st, 1949, Mao stood atop Tiananmen Gate in Beijing and proclaimed the birth of the People's Republic of China. His words thundered through the crowd. The Chinese people have stood up. A century of humiliation and warlordism had given way to a new era, though one fraught with its own trials. Mao Zedong's rise was not a straight path, but a winding struggle of victories and defeats. He built a revolution from the soil of peasant villages, carried it across mountains in the Long March, and defended it through ideological steel.
His legacy is as complex as his journey. To some, he is a liberator who gave voice to the downtrodden. To others, a ruthless autocrat whose later policies brought suffering to millions. But one thing is certain: Mao reshaped not only China, but the course of the 20th century.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through part 1 of Mao's series. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more explorations into the people and events that shaped our world.